My question was about abortion, and I just wanted to know why exactly do you think a first trimester fetus has moral value?
Okay, so a first trimester fetus has moral value because whether you consider it a potential human life or a full-on human life, it has more value than just a cluster of cells.
I actually do agree with Ben Shapiro here. I do believe that it is more than just a cluster of cells. If you actually think about it, other than a cluster of cells, what are we made out of?
If left to its natural processes, it will grow into a baby. So the real question is, where do you draw the line? So you're going to draw the line at the heartbeat, because it's very hard to draw the line at the heartbeat. There are people who are adults who are alive because of a pacemaker. They need some sort of outside force generating their heartbeat.
The problem with this scenario is someone using a pacemaker is not the same thing as a woman keeping a baby alive. A pacemaker is just a piece of technology that was designed to keep a person alive. It's not the same thing as an entire human being keeping another human being alive.
Okay, are you going to do it based on brain function? Okay, well, what about people who are in a coma? Should we just kill them? Right? The problem is anytime you draw any line other than the inception of the child, you end up drawing a false line that can also be applied to people who are adults.
The problem with this scenario is the difference between an embryo and a living child or adult differs massively. Okay, let's just say a child does require blood or an organ transplant or anything like that. It's not the same thing as a woman keeping an individual person alive. Even if you do consider it to be an individual person, the question becomes, she's the one who is keeping this person alive. It's her body. Does she have the right to disconnect this person if she wants to? And I'm going to give you a scenario in a few minutes to better fit the argument.
So either human life has intrinsic value or it doesn't. I think we both agree that adult human life has intrinsic value. Can we start from that premise?
I believe that sentience is what gives something moral value, not necessarily being a human alone.
Okay,
because,
so when you're asleep, can I stab you?
I'm still considered sentient when I'm asleep.
Okay, if you are in a coma from which you may awake, can I stab you?
Well then, no, I guess not. I mean, like,
I'm glad you answered that because I have no interest in actually murdering you.
Okay, so now I'm going to get into why I believe this scenario doesn't match with the topic at all. To begin with, it's not the same thing as someone being in a coma and some random person come up and stabbing them. This is not a random person. This is an embryo inside of the woman, so just some random person coming up and stabbing you, that scenario does not match. Now I'm going to talk about what I think is a much more accurate scenario. I actually have two versions of this scenario. This version of the scenario is, this is actually agreeance that this woman actually wants to have this baby. In the other scenario, it's, can rape victims have abortions? Should rape victims be able to have abortions if they want to? Today I'm only going to be talking about the version where the woman actually agrees to have the baby, because the other version is much more grim. I'll probably save it for another video. So let's just say you wake up in a hospital. You go to the hospital and the hospital says, would you like to sign a waiver or an agreement that says that if someone needs your body to survive, you will use your body to keep this person alive. Now in this waiver it says if they need your blood, if they need the food that you consume to also be transferred over into their body, if they require other bodily functions and fluids, etc., do you agree with this? And yeah, you read everything that you're about to go through, but the experience is much more different. It's the same thing when a woman says, yeah, I've seen people get pregnant, I've heard about pregnancy, but it's not the same thing as actually experiencing and going through the pregnancy. So eventually somebody gets into a car accident and they really do need somebody in order to survive. The hospital calls you up and you go and you agree. You have to lie down for several months and constantly give this person blood, constantly give this person the food that you consume to also be transferred over into their body, and etc. They just require all your functions and a lot of your fluids and a lot of your nutrients in order to survive. So the question becomes, now that you are carrying this person with you, do you have the right to disconnect them from your body? Even if you do manage to travel, this person is in a state of being where they can't walk, they can't talk, you have to carry them wherever you go. Even if you disagree with my scenario, I believe it is much more accurate than some random person coming up and stabbing you. So your individual life, it is no longer an individual life. This person is now a part of your life until this procedure is complete. So drinking, no. If the person can't travel, you can't travel. Any other burden that a pregnant woman might go through, you're also going to have to go through that burden. Now, a lot of people will enjoy this differently from others because some will see it as, I'm helping another human being out. I don't mind this at all. I will withstand the pain. But not everybody feels that way. and I believe it is an individual thing, and it all shouldn't be brought into everyone should just be fine with this.
So
But that's still potential sentience, and it's still a potential. Like,
I agree.
like
it is
going to be
potential sentience. You know what
Okay.
else is potential sentience? Being a fetus.
The issue with that.
But guess we know has full sentience. The mother. So when we're having these conversations, she also has to be brought into the mix. Now, I'm not saying Ben Shapiro doesn't care about women's lives. I mean, the guy is married and he does have children. I just find it strange how when we're having these conversations, we're almost always talking about how the fetus is defenseless. But if you put laws in place that stop women from having rights over their own bodies, then who's going to be the one defenseless? My solution to this is we have to go beyond this problem beforehand, before it becomes a problem. Sex ed, for example. I know for a fact that a lot of high schools don't have sex ed, and schools that do have sex ed, they don't teach it well enough to keep students informed on how to keep themselves secure or how to properly use protection. And this winds up becoming pregnancies, and this winds up becoming abortions. I have multiple ways on how we can solve this problem. First off, we need a better sexual education program. We need a program that will properly teach kids, and when I mean kids, I also mean people who consider themselves grown, 18 or around 18, even older, who don't know what they're getting into, and still wound up becoming pregnant or getting somebody pregnant. What we need is we need somebody with better experience in order to better educate them so they can properly know how to protect themselves when it comes to this, or if they choose to be abstinent, encourage that abstinence until they are properly ready to deal with the consequences that comes with having a baby. Another proposal I find is a contract between the mother and other parties involved. Well, what do you mean a contract? What I mean by, let's just say the husband is away on a trip, or he gets deployed somewhere, and the mother finds herself with an unwanted child, or a wanted child, but she just changes her mind on having it. What this contract's supposed to do is, should the woman have the baby or not, and it would have multiple parties involved on whether or not she should have the baby. So a lot of people say, well, it's her body, so shouldn't she have the majority say so? But if her and the husband agree to have the baby, and the mother aborts it without the father say so, obviously the father would be furious. But if they come to an agreement that they both should have equal say so, or if both of them agree to have the abortion, then they can have the abortion, or if one of them decides not to have the abortion, they don't have the abortion. That's what this is supposed to stop. I am well aware that this contract is flawed because the woman can simply go somewhere else and have the abortion, but then there would be penalties against her because she went against the contract. So even if the woman does want the abortion, it was her voice. She chose to sign this contract and say, yes, that I did want this baby. Because I also believe that the father does play a role in it too. Not as big as the mother personally because it is her body, but this is also the father's child. So when it comes to these things, I believe that it is a massive matter and there is no simple yes or no answer to it. Now, I am well aware that my solutions are flawed. However, I agree with them because it is simply better educating people and it is getting more parties involved when we're coming down to having an agreement. Now, when it comes to abortion, there are many factors that have to be factored in, but I believe that my solutions are the step in the right direction. Simply better education and sitting down and having a conversation about it. Because when it comes to these debates, it's less of a conversation and more of a fight. I believe I'm right, I believe I'm right. It's one side calling one side a bunch of baby killers and the other side is trying to take away women's rights. When we're having this conversation, we all need to have a better agreement when it comes to these things. Because when we simply fight, the topic itself takes a back seat and we're the ones just driving it into chaos. And with that, I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your comments. Please put them down below. I'm the Ugly Truth.